Somehow that button got hit against my will. So those people accidentally got hit. But welcome to Fort Lawrence. This is what I had to rush off in order to. Hello, Madre. Everybody, this was the frontier back in the day. We're going to do some reading. All right. So, welcome to Fort Lawrence. Fort Lawrence, Ohio's only fort constructed during the American Revolutionary War, 1775, 1783, once stood here and serves as a final resting place for soldiers who lost their lives during that conflict. The fort was constructed in 1778 as part of an ill-fated... Excuse me? You better start acting right, Mr. Gimbel. Thank you. Okay. The fort was constructed in 1778 as part of an ill-fated campaign led by American... Alright, I don't know what the freaking issue is. But I'm starting to think I got the wrong gimbal. Good morning, Mona. How are you? I cannot wait till November 5th. Hello, New Horizons. Great to see you as well. But we're trying to get this reading done, but my gimbal keeps messing up. Alright, so back to what I was reading. The fort was constructed in 1778 as part of an ill-fated campaign led by American Lackham McIntosh to neutralize the British Allied American Indian threat and establish a Western supply post for an attack on British Detroit. The fort was occupied from November 1778 through August of 1779 with troops from the 8th Pennsylvania and 13th Virginia regiments. Although the fort's physical presence was brief, it greatly impacted the people and cultures of the area. Its impact on the American Revolution can be discovered on your visit today. In the 1750s, before the Revolutionary War, English traders venturing west of the Allegheny Mountains discovered a vast forested wilderness they called the Ohio Country. There they found indigenous tribes living in villages along the major interior waterways. The Ohio Country was home to... Yo, what is wrong with my freaking gimbal? Alright, I'm going to keep reading. To the interior waterway... Vast forested wilderness they called the Ohio Country. There they found indigenous tribes living in villages along the major interior waterways. The Ohio Country was home to the Wendat, Shawnee, Seneca, Cayuga, and Lenape. The British government assumed authority over the Ohio Country and tried to keep settlers out even as colonists from Pennsylvania and Virginia flooded the area. The tribes saw the continued influx of people as threatening, and as a broken treaty with the British, the uneasy peace was shattered in 1774 when tribes defended their land against colonial invaders. All right, and then going to the image here, that is of Henry Laurens. The fort is named for Henry Laurens, President of Continental Congress from 1778 to 1779. So over here is a little interesting, guys. I took a little pre-walk because I wanted to go into this visitor center first. And there's these, well, you'll see it. This right here. So I'm gonna walk around right here so you guys can see for yourself all of this. So these are not real tree stumps, by the way. What I just stepped on right there. And okay, gimbal doesn't want to go down any further. That's not a real tree stump. That's not a real tree stump. And that's not a real tree stump. And somebody told me what they were. Somebody who was here told me that those are the foundation marks of the fort that was here. And there's a lot more to it. So, Revolutionary history in the Ohio country. The war in the Ohio country bore little resemblance to the rest of the American Revolutionary War. Commanders in both theaters faced short enlistments of troops, poor training, sometimes incompetent leadership, inadequate communications, and supply shortages. But the Ohio country would prove even more challenging. Military actions took place in wilderness conditions, with officers and troops finding the simplest actions difficult. In the Ohio country, new trails and roads had to be forged. Supplies were either brought in by pack or on the backs of the men. The terrain was rugged and unfamiliar, and the enemy was different. This enemy fought for every inch of the earth as they were pushed further west, employing methods of warfare, unfamiliar and European concepts of engagement. The conditions at Fort Laurens exposed with bright clarity the challenges of the frontier. The march on the Muskingum River Valley was slow, dashing any hopes General Lachlan McIntosh might have had to carry the campaign further. With the fort established, its military value and very existence became highly questionable. Compounding the situation was the difficult terrain, woefully inadequate supplies, and growing pressure from the tribes who could move with ease across the unfamiliar landscape. So I'm getting Game of Thrones, you're going to the wall vibes from this, big time. So yeah, again, everybody, Fort Laurens. This is not obviously the fort. This was erected after, but this is the line that the fort made, and they started building the wall through the line. So shameful. The British involvement. In 1777, the British sought the support of the tribes with promises to help them recover lands from the Americans, as well as providing them weapons and ammunition to attack border settlements east of the Ohio River. Initially, the tribes wished to remain neutral, but found themselves dependent upon the British to provide them with material goods. Wyandotte and Seneca Cayuga war parties attacked the American frontier from their villages in Upper Sandusky, while the Shawnee and the Scottsdale River Valley raided into Kentucky. The Delaware tried to remain neutral or ally themselves with the Americans. By 1778, devastating raids forced the Americans to launch a campaign against the villages of those raiding tribes and ultimately Detroit. In 1779, the untenable fort was abandoned by the Americans while the war raged on for 3 more years. Battles were fought and atrocities committed by both sides in an attempt to destroy each other. Finally, an armistice in late 1782. Oh, okay, gimbal. Whatever. My gimbal's spazzing out today. All right. The battles were fought and atrocities committed for both sides in an attempt to destroy each other. Finally, an armistice in late 1782 ended open warfare as Great Britain and the United States negotiated peace. After 1784, the British support of their former tribal allies waned and gradually the control of the Ohio country shifted to the Americans. Defeated tribes were forced northwest of the Treaty of Greensville line and later removed from this land, while settlers crossed the Ohio River to begin homesteads. And then over here it says Treaty of Greenville. In 1795, the Treaty of Greenville was signed between the United States and Ohio tribes. It took the tribal land south and east of the line for the U.S., forcing the tribes who lived there to move north and west of it. Fort Lawrence was noted as the eastern edge of the treaty, with the line stretching approximately 190 miles west to Greenville. And I've also spoken with a few Ohioans about this place. That's how I know about this. And yeah, not too many people know about the frontier. And who was that? Was that Red Dog that said that? Yeah, Red Dog, dude, you know nothing about what you're speaking on. This is stuff that I did before the People's Convoy. This is stuff I've done my entire life. God bless you. I'm just sharing it with you. You don't want to see it? Go. American Indian involvement. By the early 1700s, the first Europeans found Delaware, Shawnee, Seneca, Cayuga, and Wendat tribes living throughout the area. Over the course of countless generations, early tribes had used the site of Fort Lawrence as a hunting camp. Judging by the flint flakes, spear points, and stone tools the soil has since yielded. By the spring of 1778, war for control of the Ohio country resumed with a vengeance as tribal war parties supplied by the British at Detroit defended the Ohio country. The Shawnee remained neutral until 1777, when Chief Cornstalk was murdered by Virginians at Fort Randolph. All tribes but the Delaware were attacking American settlements in the Ohio country. As tribes defended against the American frontier aggression, war parties stopped at the Delaware villages requesting food on their way to the settlements. Delaware chiefs realized that it was only a matter of time before Americans at Fort Pitt were informed that the Delaware appeared to be supporting the hostile warriors, which would result in retaliation against their people. In July 1778, the Continental Congress authorized a campaign to the Ohio country to punish the defending tribes in the upper Sandusky area, who were protecting their land on the frontier, land that the Crown had reserved for the tribes in 1763. One of the many grievances which led to the Revolution, a treaty with the Delaware was signed at Fort Pitt on September 17th, 1778. In return for military aid against the British, this treaty promised that a 14 state was to be an Indian state which with representation in Congress for all Indian people. And that's Chief Cornstalk, a picture of that person. So this line continues to go around like this. Actually, hold on. It's also on each of these. So down here, zoom in. I don't want to tip my camera over too much because it's freaking up. All right, so right there. All right, so we're right there. It's wanting to focus on my finger. All right, and it's about to do it again. Yeah, I definitely got the wrong gimbal. Right there. We're about to go there, but this is the fort that was here. So, pretty big. Alright, so let's see. Zoom back out. No, not in. And maybe get it off the grass so we can see how far we've zoomed out. Alright, so we're going to walk on over here now. Hi. Not trying to have it on me. There we go. Alright, so Moravian missions and Lenape in the area. The Lenape Indians, who now are comprised of 3 federally recognized tribes in the United States and 2 First Nations in Canada, the Delaware Tribe of Indians, the Delaware Nation, the Stockbridge Munsee Community, the Munsee Delaware Nation, and the Delaware Nation at Moravian Town, began their forced movement from their homelands in the Delaware River Valley long before the American Revolution reached the Tuscarawas River and Muskingum Valley. The Moravian Church, one of the oldest Protestant denominations, originated in the 1400s in Bohemia, the Czech Republic. A community fled in 1722 during a period of religious persecution, eventually establishing mission activity in the West Indies in 1732. The Moravian Church's first contact with American Indian tribes was in 1735, and the Southeast, today Georgia, in the contact with the Lenape Indians. This was the 1740s in the East, Pennsylvania. The chronology reflected on the map illustrates the constant forced movement west, noted to the numerous attempts to create village settlements during this period. So, yeah, it's showing all the way over there is, like, I see Massachusetts, Delaware, Ohio is over here, so, you can see that it forces west and then south if it focuses. Yep, forces west and then south down into Texas and then up. So, and then over here it says forced movements of the Lenape Indians today. Descendants of the Delaware live in the U.S. and Canada. Delaware Tribe of Indians and Delaware Nation in Oklahoma, Stockbridge Munsee Community in Wisconsin, and the Muncie Delaware Nation and the Delaware Nation at Moravian Town in Ontario. Moravian settlements in the Muskingum Valley. The Moravian church communities are still here in the Muskingum River Valley, and their missions have reached all corners of the globe. Okay. So again, the museum is closed because of staffing issues. So I don't really know what to say about inside the museum. But we are going to go over here where there's a few more placards and interesting things to see. That definitely is a graveyard over there directly up ahead, but there's some more interesting stuff you're going to see here in a second. We're going to go right here, maybe. Come on, get over there. There we go. Alright. Fort Nonsense. Why here? Fort Lawrence was constructed in the late fall in 1778 by American General Lachlan McIntosh and his troops to establish a Western supply post for an attack on British Detroit. He and his 1,200 men left Fort McIntosh, presently Beaver, Pennsylvania, and reached the Tuscarawas River on November 18, 1778. They discovered the remnants of the blockhouse built there in 1764 by Colonel Henry Beckwith in the aftermath of the French and Indian War. McIntosh gave the order to build at this location, although neutral Delaware Indians warned him it was too far north to protect their villages. The fort was designed by French military engineer Colonel Louis Cambry Digny in 1972. The site had its first archaeological excavations led by archaeologist R. Michael Gramley. The archaeologists uncovered many clues about how the fort was constructed, with palisade walls made of unpeeled logs, 10 to 12 inches in diameter, some of which were split in half. They were placed against the inner wall of a trench averaging 36 inches deep. Ditches surround both the outside and the inside of the fort wall, where earth was burrowed to heap up against the stockade. On the outside, the ditch prevented attackers from running unimpeded up to the fort wall or hiding out at the base of the wall where gunners could not safely fire down at them. On the inside, the dirt was used to provide a parapet for the gunners to stand on and fire over the fort wall. The excavations also revealed clues about the fort's barracks. Ghosts of log joists, called sleepers, laid directly on the ground and dedicated the floors of the barricade. There was also evidence that some of the barracks and chimneys, additionally, the differences in the quality of refuse found near each building indicated that the officers and men lived apart. Once the fort was established and military value became highly questionable, the troops begged for supplies and lived on less than starvation rations. They were in no condition to fight offensively. The troops called it Fort Nonsense. So, I am currently standing on top of a mass grave. Ain't that fun? And this is how I know. This is what I read when I first came in here. The cemetery and the hospital. You are now standing outside the fort wall, near the location of the fort's hospital, outbuilding, and cemetery. 21 men died at Fort Lawrence and were buried in the fort cemetery. Several remains were discovered in single or double burials. A mass grave of at least 13 individuals was the resting place of an ill-fated wood gathering party that was ambushed by Indians in February of 1779. The graves were excavated in 1973. 1984 and 1986. The flagstone markings seen in the ground represent the location of the cemetery and where the remains of the soldiers who died here were excavated during the survey work. Their remains were removed and have been placed inside the crypt located in the museum within one soldier buried in the tomb of the unknown patriot of the American Revolution located here at the fort grounds. Yes, you heard that right. To the tomb of the unknown patriot, which you guys are about to see. That's actually it right there. The tomb of the unknown patriot. Gonna see that after we read this. Siege of the Fort and Remembrance. When Fort Lawrence was nearly finished, McIntosh and the majority of the troops returned east under Colonel John Gibson. 176 men and 5 women remained to face the winter. Due to the distance from supply lines, food and provisions were scarce. The troops resorted to eating herbs and even boiling ox hides and moccasins for soup. After being besieged by British-led tribes for a month, they were finally relieved by reinforcements in March 1779. Gibson and his men departed, but the new troops fared no better. The fort was abandoned in August 1779. The location of those killed during their gatherings expedition outside the fort is believed to be located approximately 100 yards south from this location. Soldiers from various units of the U.S. military carry the unknown patriot to his final resting place. That's what that picture is. Unknown patriot. The 1976 bicentennial of the American Revolution was the occasion for the reburial of the remains of the first Fort Lawrence soldier discovered in 1973. This fallen defender of the fort was buried with full military honors by the Ohio National Guard on June 26, 1976. The unknown patriot of the American Revolution personifies the courage and the perseverance of those who fought and died during the conflicts of the American independence, or during the conflicts for American independence. Hey, Mom, you did a good job until until E. Yes, Jack, I am. This is Fort Lawrence. Whoa! Really? Now my gimbal does this again. I don't understand my gimbal sometimes. Okay. The first and only fort of the Revolutionary War, established within the limits of what is now Ohio, was built here in December 1778 by General Lachlan McIntosh as a defense against the British and Indians, and held again until early in August 1779, when it was relieved and abandoned. It was named in honor of Henry Lawrence, President of the Continental Congress. The small garrison commanded successfully by Colonel John Gibson, Major Frederick Ward Vernon, and Lieutenant Colonel Richard Campbell, suffered much from hunger and attacks by the Indian allies of Great Britain. A number of American soldiers were killed here and buried near the fort. In commemoration of our Patriot ancestors who served with the 8th Pennsylvania and 13th Virginia Regiments at Fort Lawrence from November 18, 1778 to August 2nd, 1779, to assure that their sacrifice to the newly founded republic was not in vain, we pledge ourselves to maintain the perpetuity of these United States of America. That's all you see from the highway there. History of the memorial. Some interesting things there down at the bottom. The site of Fort Lawrence became a state memorial in 1917, thanks to the efforts of the Christian Bats and the Daughters of the American Revolution. Before that designation, numerous activities occurred along the Tuscarawas River. The daily lives, historic moments, and outside forces on the people involved reflect the changing landscape around us and our culture. Early indigenous communities lived here thousands of years ago, and the tribes that descended from them There's something over here. I just watched it jump. It's probably a toad. But it was big. Where is it? I'm gonna go back over here. Keep you guys watching that. Early indigenous communities lived here thousands of years ago, and the tribes that descended from them. The land saw traders, colonial settlements, soldiers during the French and Indian War, and the American Revolutionary War, and settlers and farmers in the early 1800s. In 1968, state funds were appropriated to construct a museum, which was completed in 1971. In 1972, archaeologist R. Michael Gramley began to excavate the site, and findings helped gain a better understanding of the historic events that are reflected here. Future archaeological excavations in 1973, 1984, and 1986 located the remains of soldiers who perished while defending the fort. Their remains were removed and have been placed inside the crypt located inside the museum. Many artifacts discovered revealing the everyday life of the garrison were uncovered and can be seen in the museum. Oh, so that was 11. I was supposed to start here. Hold on. This specific one, gimbal, by the way, guys, is made for actual camera. So, anyways, early American and Indian history. This timeline illustrates scenes from the daily and ceremonial culture of these unique and rich people who lived in this area for thousands of years. So we see from the left 1200 or 12,000 to 8,000 BC. We see the Muskegon River Valley has been home to American Indians for upwards of 13,000 years. The first groups arrived as small, extended families following large animal herds like deer, elk, bison, and even the now extinct mammoth to hunt them for their meat and hides. 8,000 to 800 BC. 10,000 to 3,000 years ago, hunter-gatherer groups began the exchange and grow in complexity. Development of more complex tools and hunting methods along the adapting following seasonal game migration greatly expanded. Also, the changing climate led to the greater variety of plant food sources. 800 BC to 900 AD. Around 3,000 years ago, these communities began to stay in one place for longer periods in small groups as they began to maintain a more sedentary lifestyle. They expanded cultivation of domesticated plants as food sources, developing horticulture, and eventually farming methods, as well as constructing long-term structures and ritual burial mounds. Around 2,000 years ago, hunting and gathering villages evolved into larger settlements along waterways and in river valleys. People built more permanent homes where burial mounds and earthworks of complex nature were constructed along with ceremonial sites with hilltop enclosures. AD 900 to 1650. By 1,000 years ago, people in the Muskegon River Valley combined the successful cultivation of Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash, with villages consisting of 100 to 150 individuals. They consisted of rectangular lodges, sometimes with plaza-like meeting areas and designated storage, trash, and burial zones. By the early 1700s, the first Europeans found Delaware, Shawnee, Seneca, Cayuga, and Wyandot tribes living throughout the area. Erected in 1976 by American Legion, Fort Lawrence Post 190 in Bolivar, Ohio. History of the Canal and Interstate 77. After it was abandoned in 1779, Fort Lawrence slowly began to decay. When the Ohio and Erie Canal was constructed through Bolivar in 1928, it destroyed the two eastern bastions of the fort, facing the river's edge. In 1850, when Charles Whitsley drew his map, only a faint outline remained, causing him to misjudge where the fort actually stood. The canal brought great prosperity to Ohio, but it ceased to be used for transportation after the devastating 1913 flood. During the last half of the 19th century, the site of Fort Lawrence was farmed. It became a state memorial in 1917. Today, the former canal towpath is part of the Ohio-Erie Canal National Heritage Canalway, part of walking trail from Cleveland to New Philadelphia. Interstate 77 was built in the late 1960s. The highway construction caused the river, always the natural defense of the fort's east side, to be moved. The road was built in the old riverbed, and with the increased traffic brought by the interstate, Fort Lawrence became more accessible to the public. In 1968, the state of Ohio appropriated funds to build a museum to commemorate the role Fort Lawrence played in the struggle for American independence. The Tuskegee River was moved when the interstate was built. This aerial photo was taken in the late 1960s from the east side of the river facing the fort. Building the Ohio and Erie Canal from Bolivar to Zor. In 1825, work began statewide on the canal, which was designed to connect Lake Erie at Cleveland with the Ohio River of Portsmouth. This ambitious project took 8 years and transformed the state and the ability of its residents to move themselves and their products. A 7-mile segment of the canal that runs from here in Bolivar to through what was the Society of separatists of Zor's land to the southeast was dug by the members of the Zor community. The Zor community existed from 1817 until 1898, when the remaining members voted to dissolve. And it looks like that's the path right there. And this must have been the canal. Now dried up, obviously. So, that's it. Just wanted to show you guys a little bit of history here. Not really able to find anything you guys would like to see out here. So, but I hope everybody has a very blessed day. I'll be live again when I get back to where I'm staying, because we still got something else to discuss. I did a live earlier, if you guys forgot, but yeah, we're gonna be talking about that too. Yep. But either way, I hope you guys have a very blessed night. If you don't come back, if you do, good. I'll see you then. Deuces.